Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 96, Gratitude. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee helping you heal your family legacy. Welcome back. I hope that you all had a nice Thanksgiving. It usually comes with some kind of, story that people will tell for the rest of their lives. Sometimes it just goes without any glitches or, anything negative. But some of those stories can be amusing or really filled with gratitude. And so today, even though it might feel a little late, it's not. I want to talk about gratitude. And I'm going to start today by talking about what I think gratitude is. And, there are so many different kinds of definitions. But I'm going to start out with a definition by my friend Melody Beattie, who is also one of the originators of codependence. And she has written Codependent No More, Beyond Codependence. In this particular book is called The Language of Letting Go, which is really one of my favorite daily meditation books. And, probably, I would guess, and, this is just me being me, because I have to think about why people do what they do all the time, is that this is really one of her best. And like I said, it's my favorite meditation book. It's called The Language of Letting Go. And she wrote this after the death of her son. And, I think that's probably part of the reason that it is as profound as it is. And so I'm going to read from this book, Language of Letting Go. And for those of you who are interested, it's the January 18th day. And it's just called Gratitude. So here it goes. Sometimes in life, things happen too fast. We barely solve one problem when two problems surface. We're feeling great in the morning, but we're submerged in misery by nightfall. Every day we face interruptions, delays, changes, and challenges. We face personality conflicts and disappointments. Often when we're feeling overwhelmed, we can't see the lessons in these experiences. One simple concept can get us through the most stressful of times. It's called gratitude. We learn to say thank you for these problems and feelings. Thank you for the way things are. I don't like this experience, but thank you anyway. Force gratitude until it becomes habitual. Gratitude helps us stop trying to control outcomes. It is the key that unlocks positive energy in our life. It is the alchemy that turns problems into blessings and the unexpected into gifts. And then the meditation is, today I will be grateful. I will start the process of turning today's pain and tomorrow's joy into tomorrow's joy. I really like that. And it kind of goes with some of the issues and some of what I've been saying on this podcast for quite a while. Number one is that we can't determine the outcome of any of our experiences. I can tell you that there is no such thing as behavior without consequences. We want to, for the most part, we want to have positive consequences in our behavior, but we don't know what our behavior is going to create. We don't know the consequences. And the other thing is that without pain, there is no growth. And without growth, there's no joy. And joy is actually not difficult to come by if you have what we call an attitude of gratitude. And, one of the things she talks about in this book is force gratitude until it becomes habitual. That might sound kind of, hokey, but really force gratitude. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's like what I've been talking to clients about for years, and that is one of the easiest things to do when you're trying to force gratitude, and you can do this anytime. So let's say, a loved one's in the emergency room with some kind of a crisis going on in their health and well-being, and you're scared or worried. And, when you force gratitude, what you can do in the moment is identify 5 things right in the moment that you are grateful for. I did that, and I still do that, but I used to do that every day on my way to work because I knew all day long I was going to hear about people's trauma. And if you can put that into your mind for a minute and say, gee, I wonder what it's like to spend 50 years of your life listening to other people's horrible traumas that they've been through. And I could tell you that one of the ways that it worked for me was by identifying on the way to work, because I used to walk to work, I would identify 10 things every morning that I was grateful for. Okay? And the first thing always was, I'm grateful that I woke up today. I'm grateful that I'm walking to work. I'm grateful that I have a job. I'm grateful that I have a family. I'm grateful for my parents, that they had the wherewithal to raise me. Okay, you don't have to be deeply spiritually guided to have gratitude. It helps in your spiritual development, but it doesn't have to be there first. You can do gratitude in your darkest moment. And when you have gratitude, and when you identify the things that you're grateful for, you can't be in distress in that moment. Those 2 things can't really go hand in hand. I have a friend whose young child has been fighting a terrible cancer. His little girl is fighting a terrible cancer. And so she's on this Caring Bridge platform for people who have cancer in their families, so that, when someone is fighting cancer, of course, people are always calling them and texting them, how are things going? Please give us an update, blah, blah, blah. And so it takes away from what they're trying to do for themselves and their person. And so this Caring Bridge platform is one where they can post what's going on, and everybody that wants to log on can see what's going on. And so I've been reading what's going on with this young girl for, it's been about a year now. And right now she's in remission, thank God. But all through, these people, it's like they've had their lives, right? And they've had trauma in their lives besides this one. But whenever this friend of mine would post something about what her daughter was going through that day, and I want to tell you, it was ugly for a little girl, a little 6-year-old to be going through. But she would always start out by saying something like, I'm so grateful that my little girl is still here with me today. And here's our little girl in a cancer ward dealing with like the horrible mess of, chemotherapy and immunotherapy and, sick and sad and And even her little girl would be, she'd show a picture of her with, her little bald head looking at cartoons. And so, when I say you can, even in your darkest moment, if you can find a way to be grateful, it helps you through the darkest moment. You don't feel like this is the end of your life. I think about the people in Ukraine, for instance, and, when I see interviews with them on TV, most of them start out by saying what they're grateful for. This is part of the reason they're so resilient, I think, and that is that, they start out by saying, I love my country. I'm grateful that I still am here to fight for my country. And, instead of talking about how, the horrors of it all and, oh, it is horrible, they talk about what they're grateful for. And I think that by identifying what you're grateful for every day, I still do that especially when I'm having a particularly difficult day. And when you get to be my age, one of the things that starts happening is that, people start dying. It's just how it goes. And so it can get pretty dark some days. And those days are the days that I start thinking about what I'm grateful for. Of course, like I said, I'm first of all grateful that I woke up that day. And second of all, now I'm grateful I can get out of bed. And I'm grateful for my son, and I'm grateful for my spouse, and I'm grateful for my siblings who are all still well and okay. And, it's like I have a large extended family. I'm grateful for all of them. And, I think about that. And even now, as I speak about that, it makes me joyful. It makes me have some joy in my life. It's not all over, no matter what. If you're still alive, then maybe you have something to be grateful for. Now, I would say that, some people say, oh, well, you're just talking about something that, how can you possibly be so positive? Trust me, I'm not one of those toxic positive persons, toxic positivity where people pretend that everything's great. Oh, yay, the flowers are out. Well, that can be something you can be grateful for in the moment. But sometimes things really are rough. You can experience that difficulty and still have gratitude. Okay? There's I'm going to change for a minute and say, there is an article that was in the AARP, which, hey, I'm in AARP. I have been since I was 50. And it's like, I don't know why they have that why the age for that is 50, because it seems awful young now. Anyway, in their idea of gratitude under behavioral health for older adults, it's called The Many Gifts of Gratitude. And it starts out by saying studies have shown that gratitude has a uniquely powerful relationship with health and well-being, both of our own and of those around us. Gratitude, and this is really, really important, gratitude encourages us to focus on what is rather than what is not. That, I know that sometimes it's like, oh, platitudes. We used to call that in AA platitudes of gratitude, right? Well, hey, there's something to be said. And especially like I said, one of the things that happens when you get older is you start losing people. And, there are challenges like, your health, like, how you're going to be the next day, or, whether you're going to be able to get up that day, or, and this happens when people age. And when you're able to have an attitude of gratitude, you're able to face those challenges and losses and frustrations that all of us face. It means that we are tackling negative things and challenging ourselves to find ways to be grateful for the issues that we deal with. You know, most people, if you ask them, so when you grow up, do you want to be like a angry, old, resentful, bitter person? Or do you want to be a grateful, joyful, wise person? And it is my experience that if you want to be a grateful, joyful, and wise person, then you not only face the challenges and frustrations in our daily lives that we all have, but you embrace them. And I remember one of the first times that I actually embraced a big challenge. And, it was kind of an interesting day. I mean, I actually do remember this. It was an interesting day. It's like if you've heard me talk about my son, who I absolutely love and always have and always will. He was pretty easy. I mean, he did have meningitis when he was 18 months old. So that was a hard thing. And of course, it's hard for parents when their kids get sick or when they're, there are the challenges of being a single parent as well. But he was a loving, kind, and easy child to be around. And I was grateful for that every day. I mean, his kindness went kind of beyond. I remember once when he was in the second grade, he came home with these two big, bags full of See's candy bars. And if any of you have had children, you might remember See's candy bars. Kids would sell these for, to raise money for a library or whatever they were doing. But there was always, every year, there was always a See's candy bars. I think it's different now. I think there's another, because I just bought some from a kid. But anyway, they'd have to go around and they'd sell these candy bars to the neighbors and to other people to raise money for something at their school. And he had two of these. Now, most kids only bring home one. And I said, James, what, why do you have two of these? Where are you? And he said to me, he said, the little girl's name, I'm not going to say it right now, but he said, my friend lives in a neighborhood that's too scary for her to go around the neighborhood at night and try and sell candy bars. It's too scary for her because she lives in a neighborhood that's not very safe. And she was crying and telling me about this. And so I said, that's fine. I'll go and I will sell the candy bars for you. And he did. And, it's like just really touched me, right? I mean, that's the kind of kid that my little son was. And he was kind of, came out that way. He was always kind and, cared about others in a way that, totally without judgment. And anyway, but what I was saying is that I remember one of the days that I felt a lot of pain, a lot of distress, a lot of frustration, but I also was aware that I felt a lot of joy because, I worried that he didn't have enough challenge in his life to be able to really, have those the resilience that I know is kind of required for people to live life. And so one day he and I got in a conflict, which hardly ever happened. He and I got in a conflict and he was maybe in the fourth grade or something. And, boy, we were going at it and he was in so much distress. And, he had done something that, okay, so it wasn't a big deal, but at least I remembered feeling glad that it happened because then he could learn some things. Because without learning some things, without trauma in your life, you don't learn how to deal with life. You don't learn resilience. You don't get a moral compass. He was young and he was outside with his friends and we had a little community newspaper. They took this community newspaper in the next door neighbor's house. It's funny now I think about it. And threw it on their roof. Okay, so that they couldn't get the newspaper. And, she came over and said, your son threw my newspaper up on the roof and blah, blah, blah. And in the moment I thought, oh, thank God. I'm so glad he's done something that he can learn from. And so we dealt with that. And, he was in so much distress, and he had to deal with the consequences of that behavior. And I felt sad, and I felt, I wasn't angry at him. I mean, he was acting his age, but I felt sad that he had to go through this. And our neighbor was this older lady, probably younger than I am now, but she was older than I was then. And, she was really mad and all like, I can't believe kids do this. And I'm thinking, really? I guess you don't have children, because these are the kind of things they do at this age. But anyway, so I had joy about that. And I also had gratitude. I thought, thank goodness. I was glad. My gratitude was that he felt really sad and very sorry that he had done that thing, because he understood that wasn't what you're supposed to do with your neighbors. And then he, of course, had to deal with, what am I going to do about this newspaper up on the roof? Can't be there forever. And so we dealt with that. And, we went through it. And I felt, going through all that took some time out of my day to deal with that. But when I say that you can take a difficult experience and you can feel gratitude for that, because you know that you will grow. You will grow through that, and you will become wiser, and you will develop a moral compass, and you will be able to have empathy for other people. And, when you're able to do that, your life, it doesn't become even more magical, or somehow you can avoid dealing with life on life's terms, because that doesn't happen to anybody. Life on life's terms is what life is about. You don't get to determine what those terms will be. They are going to be what they are. And dealing with life on life's terms only happens it's going to happen, okay? Period. But if you're going to deal with life on life's terms and become wise and become aware and become joyful and filled with gratitude, you will learn to embrace those difficult moments, not just face them down. Like, when I hear people talk about climbing mountains, I'm going to conquer the mountain. And people have asked me before, did you conquer Mount Kilimanjaro? It's like, I say, heavens no, I can't conquer a mountain. A mountain is not to be conquered. It's to be embraced. It's to be appreciated. It's to feel gratitude for. Okay, it's like you embrace those challenges, as difficult as they might be in the moment. If you are able to embrace them, you are able to feel gratitude and joy in the moment. Even it's like you go, oh no. It's like falling down. When you're an old person, that happens sometimes. And it's like you fall down and you go, oh, da, 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 da. Here I am falling down in the ground. And you say, oh, I'm grateful that I am still thinking about the fact that I'm on the ground. I'm not passed out. Now I'm able to get back up. I'm able to walk. I'm able to go home. I'm able to, if I have a home, I'm able to go there. And, every moment that you are awake and alive, there is something to be grateful for. First of all, you're alive. Not everybody can say that every moment of every day. And you're awake. That's a good thing. And you're able to be aware if you are. I mean, I understand that there are people that don't seem to be aware because maybe they're in a coma or something. But now, I've known this because I worked in the emergency room. I am aware that sometimes when you think people are unconscious, that they are just in another state of consciousness and they can actually hear what is being said. I remember when I was younger quite a bit and I worked in the emergency room, one of the things that I heard one of the docs talk about one day was that he heard somebody in the emergency room refer to a patient who was comatose as being in a vegetative state. Now, that's a very common phrase that is used. And he turned to them and he said, don't ever say that because we don't really know what's going on in their mind. Their mind is still there. We don't know. And he said, he told a story about how when he worked in a neurology department where they kept referring to a man in a vegetative state. And after years, the man woke up and said, I'm not a vegetable. So he'd been listening to people all that time. And he thought, wait a minute, I'm not a vegetable. I'm a person. And I'm here. And he was grateful that he was there. So I want to, again, tell you some ideas. I'm going to end this with telling you some ideas about how to practice your gratitude muscle. Ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? And bring it right into the moment. I'm breathing. I'm alive. I live somewhere. I have enough food on the table. I have people around who care about me. That's gratitude. Write thank you cards to people, not emails, thank you cards that have been there for you. Like caregivers. They spend a lot of time and energy caring for you. Think about them. Write them a thank you card. Write down and say out loud what I'm grateful for. When you would listen to me on my way to work, I'd say it out loud. I wasn't saying it inside. Remember, I've told you before that your brain listens to everything you say. And if you say it out loud, it's going to hear what you say. So I would like to leave you with those suggestions. Remember, an attitude of gratitude brings you joy. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.